Righty, well, welcome everyone to the Accounting Standards and Regulation for autumn 2014. It's good to be back. I'm sure hopefully it's good to be back for you guys as well. What we're going to be looking at this semester is basically how to understand financial reports, how to understand the rules behind financial reports, how to be able to read a financial report and know how it's put together, which in a way begs the obvious question, and you may well be sitting here, especially looking at the title of the subject, Accounting Standards and Regulation. It doesn't exactly strike as something amazingly interesting to look at, which begs the so what question. It's like, why do we actually care about what we're about to be doing? Why are you guys here? I mean, the last couple of days the weather's been really nice, so I've usually been talking about how you could be doing something outside. It's obviously got a little bit worse today, but I'm sure you could probably think of better ways to spend your time than 2 hours in an accounting lecture. And that's probably fair enough. Where I see the subject, and there's an accounting angle to it, but there's also, I think, a broader angle to this. So if you're going out to become an accountant, which we very much would like to see that happen, but if you're going out to become an investment professional, if you're working in the finance space, knowing the rules behind how annual reports are put together, how companies come up with their reporting is a really important thing. Even outside the accounting angle, there are elements of this. So if you have no interest in becoming an accountant, which sort of begs the question why you're here in the first place, but if you have no interest, I still think there are issues that we talk about across this semester which are still relevant to you. Now, before we get into the content, I think looking at the bigger picture of where this subject sits is important. And just gives you a little bit of context. So one of the first things that we're going to be looking at, and is important with this, is incentives. So these don't necessarily have to be management incentives around companies. This could just be simply, why are you guys here? What is the benefit that you guys get from being here and in this class? Now, hopefully there will be benefits from that, but if you guys don't see any, then I suppose it's me not doing my job. But our approach with this subject, and sort of underline a lot of what we talk about, and when we see it through the regulation, is every single person is self-interested. Every single person, and it may be a little bit cynical, but every single person is wanting to basically get the best for themselves. Now that may not be in a monetary sense. That may be they just want happiness for themselves. They may want happiness for other people, and that makes them happy. But at the end of the day, we want what is best for ourselves. Now, we'll be looking at that in terms of management and companies. They will be making decisions and choices around how they report information to you. And there are strong incentives why management will choose the numbers that they do and sort of pick the numbers that they can. With information, which is the second part, we do need information for a lot of what we're dealing with. What we're talking about is accounting information. Now that is used for a specific purpose. But even just in a broader sense, and I just want you guys to think about this for a second, why do you need information? How does it help? Yeah, and that's pretty much, I don't know if I could say that better myself, to make better decisions. It helps us make decisions. If you're wanting to go out and buy a car, you need information about price, you need information about, engine volume, if that's your thing. You need information to be able to make that decision. If you're going on holidays, you need information on flights, you need information on hotels. You need this sort of stuff. It is important. From an accounting point of view, accounting is just information, and the information that we see in financial reports is information like any other. And it helps us make investment decisions. It helps certain companies make lending decisions. And we're going to explore why that's the case. And the last thing we're going to be looking at is regulation. And obviously that's a big part of the subject, and we're going to be looking at specifically accounting regulation. But even broader than that, why do we have regulation in our lives anyway? Why do we have rules and laws that sit there? Why do we have new rules and laws that come into place? And recently we've had, for those that ride motorcycles, there's a new lane splitting law that's just come into effect. Now whether that's going to be a good or bad thing remains to be seen. As of the weekend, now being an accountant with a young family, I'm not usually out this late at night anyway, so it probably doesn't affect me so much. But we've had new laws in the city now about how late people can be out and how late things can be open and how late you can get served drinks. These are regulations which are coming in to affect us. I suppose the question behind all of that is, what is the purpose of regulation? Why do we just not have any regulation at all? Let everyone just do whatever the hell they want and see what happens then. So we're going to be exploring theories behind regulation, as well as more specifically around why we have accounting regulation and the problems that it solves. Now, as background, well, first of all, I'm David Bond, subject coordinator. You've probably been getting a few emails from me. Those are my contact details up there. In terms of getting in touch with me, email or my mobile, which is on UTS Online in the staff contacts page, is the best way to do that. My work phone is probably not a good one to get me on. I mean, if you do get me there, great, you've done well. In terms of coming in and having a chat, every day apart from Friday I'll be in the office. If you happen to find me down there just sort of off the cuff, I'm happy to talk to you. If it's something that you do definitely need to sit down with me, then just make a consult time and just send me an email and we can arrange something that works for us. In terms of the team behind that's working with us, Professor Peter Wells is out at Ku-ring-gai, so most of you guys will have nothing to do with him. We've got Charles and Margot, which some of you guys probably would have already met this morning. We've got Mariam, who's taking the 8 o'clock class, and we have Helen, who's taking one of the 5 o'clock classes. So that just gives you a sense of who's involved in the subject. Now, we will get through some of the admin stuff, and I know I've gone a little bit out of order. We'll get to the admin stuff just after the break, including talking about the first assignment, which is now available on UTS Online. So, why do I have a job, basically? So why do accountants exist? Now they exist, I'm happy that they exist because it gives me something to do. You guys hopefully are happy they exist because it's going to give you hopefully something to do in a few years' time. But it's got to be more than that. There's got to be a reason why accountants exist, and accounting exists, because if it didn't, I think the world would be in a much poorer shape, as much as probably a few people would argue with that. So what we're going to be looking at today is what accounting is. We're going to be looking at the functions of accounting, so how it gets used, and we're going to be looking at some of the higher level ideas around the regulation of accounting. Now, all that accounting is just record keeping. That's it. And it's been used by humans for thousands of years. So I mean, if you go back, it's maybe a little bit small to see. But I've read arguments in anthropology that have said accounting, well, the first writing was actually accounting. Like, it was actually accounting records, which is the first ever things that people actually used to write about. So this is something which has been going on for a very long period of time. Now, the question then is, why do we need accounting? Why do we need to write stuff down? And I'm going to just do a really simple exercise with you guys right now. How many of you guys are able to call from memory your mum or your dad's phone number? I know I can. Okay, if you've got a partner, off the top of your head, if you have to dial their number, could you do that? What about if you got, all your 10, I would say all your 10 friends, but I know you probably got more than 10 friends. But could you call all your friends' phone numbers from memory? I'd hazard probably not. Like, I struggle to even remember my wife's number because it's all on speed dial now. You just have to, you've got it saved, you just dial it. The human brain can only, at least in short-term working memory, can only remember sort of it's 7 plus or minus 2 things. So there's actually not that much that we can keep stored and actually usable at any one point in time. So as things have become increasingly complex, we need to be able to write stuff down. So this idea of increasing social complexity becomes really important. Now, in the ASX at the moment, so on the list on the stock exchange, there's over 2,000 companies. I would not be able to keep track of what each and every one of them are doing off the top of my head. Some people can, but I absolutely cannot. So we need records to be just able to help us keep track of what's going on. The second thing we need them for, I suppose, is keeping records so we can look back at evidence around disagreements later on. So it provides us a hard record that we can look back and say, well, I lent you this amount of money, where is it? Whereas if that's done over a handshake deal and no one else hears about it, it's not written down, it's really hard to prove that that was the case. So it helps us provide evidence that we can look back at.